Hello and welcome everyone to the reading of STUNT, a mythical reimagining inspired by the life of Nellie Jackson. This is our opportunity to be together in love and beauty and reverence. This is our Jubilee. This reading was produced by Lisa Hegram.
Nellie Jackson operated a multi-million-dollar brothel for 60 years in the Deep South, funded civil rights freedom fighters, and was an FBI informant who shared critical information used to track down the KKK. She did this all as a Black woman in the 1930s, born in a world bound by burning crosses, fields of cotton, and sharp hunger. Nellie witnessed a world of constant grinding and frenetic Black labor in cotton fields that spanned everywhere the human eye could see. Knowing how the labor of Black bodies was harnessed for the profit of whiteness, Nellie decided to take her industry and build a literal empire. Despite her legacy, little is written or documented about her. Beyond a 1-hour documentary, Mississippi Madam, The Life of Nellie Jackson, and Follow Me to Nellie's, a play authored by Dominique Morisseau. Her name is absent from literature.
Born in 1902 in Possum Corner, Mississippi, Nellie Jackson moved to Natchez in 1930. There, she started a brothel and ran it for 60 years, with the full cooperation of the town's leaders. Serving only a white clientele, Nellie became famed across the United States and abroad, even opening up a gift shop in her brothel, selling t-shirts embroidered with the message, "Follow me to Nellie's." A spy for the FBI, Nellie regularly gathered intelligence about Ku Klux Klan members from her workers. She was known for her deep support of civil rights and helped hundreds of Black civil rights activists be released from local jails in the 1960s. Nellie was murdered in 1990 by a drunken white client who was refused entry into Nellie's and subsequently burned her house down in retaliation.
Stunt. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Exodus 14:21. I pored over this good book, a weathered catalog of men desperate to win their own unsteady kingdom. Studied a theology born of desire, flesh, and fire. Read each psalm over and over and found power singing in each word. Child, this is what men want. To be made a sorcerer, eyes rolled back, knees dropped to sacred ground, to speak in tongues, visions of a burning bush, magicked lions suborned in a red eclipsed rapture, a world shuddering to balance with your wonder. Baby, we all want to be marvelous. That's what I sound. A chance to stunt.
Incantation. Let us start with this. I want to be born a joy, my Father blessing the skies for my beating heart. I want shoes, a pot, groaning with meat we didn't nurse to kill. I want a mother who laughs, as quick as rain, no tantrums, no blood, no memory of whips. No ominous dark corners, no fumbling, invention to obscure rape. Mulatto, quadroon, half-blood, no one there to stroke the loose soft braid leavened with granny's tears on a dirt floor somewhere outside Natchez, lit by smoking fire.
Nellie entertains a Klansman. I live with your lonely all day long, draw the shape and sound of it, even tell you its lineage, trace the roots of your horror, recount the nights you spent sweating next to your lovely pale wife, weeping at the unconquerable night outside your bedroom window. Frankly, it's boring, this stale hidebound hate, the way you bury your fear in flesh. The truth is, working girls get bored with the way you confuse want with hunger. I've had kinfolk strung up on trees, their fingers vined like fruit around its branches. The smell of iron and pleading bones sewn to your tongue, then come hungering for a taste of dark to my damn house. In those fleshly moments, furloughed from your evil. Do you find it possible that you are human? Bone and flesh that can be fractured? How terrible for you. How sad that my God will look upon you, your hands bloodstained and pleading. Then sweep by, black and divine.
Nellie tells her children a parable. We are all imperfect and we all straddle good and bad. And perhaps nobody in town straddled that better than Miss Nellie, Natchez alderman. I grew up nursed on commerce. My mama and daddy lived in cotton fields, would come home, enter that door, and I'll be damned if they weren't enthroned in that fruit's white, its dander floating soft and stubborn in the night air, everything but pliant. We'd never be rid of it and had to worship what each blessed weeping ounce gave. We all have to have a master. I just wanted to be my own. I knew Jesus would not come no matter what my daddy said, so I built a kingdom like cotton, soft, brutal, irresistible, another skin trade, so wrapped around the heart of Natchez, to kill me would mean to kill a country.
Nellie speaks on original sin. Late summer nights are spent exhaling hot, smoky circles into Mississippi black. My girdle pressed straight into the curl of my ready belly, as insolent as a man's hands. I love rough familiarity, the blues, hot throb I get from even the pastor's measured smile when I trespass again into the church's doors. Spend hours dreaming of what just the promise of soft flesh can drive a good girl to do. Why feign ignorance at what's between our thighs? The joys a lazy hour can bring, honeyed, hushed, rocking, rushing a lover into the very wick of me. Any Bible worth its salt will tell you my want is wicked. Yet I'll go back, taste Eve's apple 1,000 times, kneel before her, abashed in praise, a bad woman flushed in grace.
Heartache. I tell you, there is no word yet made in 1930 to speak to what my eyes witness. I love nothing more than my hands because I know what they do. I love my limbs because they have taken me here to this ground. I love where my body came from, even the fields that yoked me and my parents in bloodless thrall. The skies dug deep in mud that never harvest a month's rent or a full belly, no matter the overseer's scale. I've become obsessed with accounting. The ease tables give to my life, how one rape can give way to 1,000. Numbers carry the burden of what is unspeakable. The money it takes to live, the acres my grandmother was promised. No matter the sum, the answer is always the same. There is no good white man. No man that can't be spoiled by power, left rank and molding after devouring what little of our bodies are left, their open mouths spooling for more. Here are the spells I've learned to stay alive. Always keep your money under your mattress. Bury gold where fire can't scorch it. Sweep the floors with salt. Teach your girls to read. Smile when those white folks come, grinning alligators thirsty for war. Feed your dead good liquor and pay those bills meekly, shuffling feet on dusty floors, head bowed, eyes focused on the ground you built, trusting in no heaven but your own.
Nellie buys a fur coat. We are all animals. Some just fight better. You know, hunger is lethal. Look across this country. Anything lovely had to fight to stay alive. My girls will tell you the same thing. The ones that ran away from praying fathers. The uncles who longed for their embrace. Dovey could only keep her brothers at bay with the iron blade of a butcher knife. She came stumbling up to my door, naked and fevered, begging to be saved. Why shouldn't we be able to skin the ones we survived? Leave the brutal echo of their lives down in the same fields they would have slayed us. Let us stunt in their blood, whirl like haints across our kingdoms, buck past their desire until we make it our own.
What difference is there between your skin and the pelts of any animal we breed to harvest? It takes 100 animals to make one mink coat. It took 7 generations of my kin sharecropping on land a white man stole to buy back just 1 acre of land. Yearning for a return to a simple arithmetic you believe Black women can never master. So I put on that mink every night, opened my brothel door, and as if I clanged a bell across Christendom, you come running, ready to plunder another woman you done stole everything from. Yes, I'm bloodthirsty. Crowd my body in furs until that day I conquered this world, exchanged this fur for white. Like any good shepherd, I revel in the lives I rear, the tender haunches of flesh, its simple beauty spread across my shoulders. I even love these white men, love the coin jingling, breathless in their pockets, clanging from my palm. I love your rough moaning as you urge pleasure on. Hold tight to my girl's waist as if she would cleave without you. And those golden moments after, when you lay prone, spent, and punch drunk, mumbling about the no good women you drive mad with your life.
I love my girls for their industry, how they brace their hands against your chest as if to measure the very beating of your heart. Wheedle your money as one would wind yarn from a spinning wheel. I mean to say, we know your weight, how to breed your stock, carve your organs to suit our whims. How quickly you come with the promise of a good feed, like any dumb calf you trust where the wine of your stomach coaxes you. Come here, sweet. Come here, baby. Follow, my darlings. I'll make me a coat of you. Dance down the streets of Natchez, your kinsmen bowing in wonder.
Nellie speaks on power. Listen, there is no such thing as luck. The seasons that came, I made them. Fall, the god of death, the dear red gold of vermilion smoke. Fire, earth-tilled, turned over until bloody havoc unfurled across the land. Wreathed with blooms of cloaked clan, here to protect the defenseless. I am heartsick of good white men, the dead they leave behind. Working girls know the birth of rough trade. For us, there's no such thing as easy money. Ask any woman. Split, torn, crying, the body can take so much. Be hunted, adorned, you'd think Johns would worship it, rather than hunt us down by the docks, that river awaiting coffin, plumbed with ripped flesh. What could I do other than to steal the harvest? Nothing is bloodless. Only fools would ask forgiveness.
Winter, its own universe, cold, bustier, a town ringing with coins clang, money, a language every man displays a startling fluency. I made my own church, bought good food, fine silks, became landed. It's deed safe and folded 3 times in a leather purse. Pressed crisp new dollars into my sister's hands even before she could fix her mouth to say please. No kin when hungry. My girls are safe inside. I tell you, there are days I go, lay in my bed, and weep myself red with the wonder of it. Call it grace, call it glory, call it sin, but I have laid up my works into an empire.
Spring is wild, grieving, funerals with no caskets, hundreds mourning under the blinding suns. I know every Black body dancing from tree bots at Natchez pale pleasure. They want us yoked, sweet, and forgetful. This is commerce, to sell a lie, make it sing, until even we forget the shape of a whale, a broken neck, the lost child. I know nothing. I know I want to live. I know everything.
Summers are for beauty. My girls revealed in a haze of ripe loveliness. We revel in fullness, tomatoes jeweled with salt, watermelon cleaved to its core. In dusk, I sit quiet on my porch. Behold the magic of my own stubborn heart beating and beating. The air filled with hair grease and jasmine. My fingers hooked to the very crook of Natchez. It means something that I am here and alive, working this town like an uppity wonder. See how I come rustling, steady unseen, my pleasure flooding over Natchez.
Cabal. After the men leave, their gates drowsy and spent, we gather in the porch's shadow. And for one purpled hour, we glory in the day. Magic mazes from our
Scalps, blue magic slick in its parts, marvel at our own quick beauty.
Some call us witches, swear we use the time to drum up new spells.
Love, leave us, and our lawless flesh. Never ask the magic.
Its source, you'd find it ugly, simple and plain, whatever our unruly hearts desire.
Does it drive you mad that we palm our pleasures, can whip our own bodies?
Into a frenzied, honeyed dark, a mass of bees, building and building into weird splendor.
We are the woman.
We are the woman.
We are the women.
No good God-fearing man.
no good God-fearing man.
No good God-fearing man.
Will ever claim to know.
Only yearn for as you wrap your arms around your wife. Smell her neck, the yeast of tame skin rising. Thank y'all so much. That is the reading portion of Stunt. Can we take a moment just to celebrate? Like that was so beautiful, y'all. Thank you so much. So hi, I'm Saida Agostini. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the author of Stunt. I am super honored to be here with y'all and all of my people here today. What I'm gonna ask folks to do is just to go around, share your name, your pronoun, and yeah, if there's anything else you want to share just to kind of about like why you decided that, you know what, I'm gonna take time away from Bravo TV or, a good glass of water or an air-conditioned space on a Sunday afternoon to do this reading of Stunt with me. And I'm gonna pick on Nkiru to start, and then I'll just ask folks to kind of just popcorn it.
All right, hello. My name is Nkiru. Nawalezi. My pronouns are she and her. I really believe, I was very excited to join because I love your work, Saida. So thank you for having me. And I just get very inspired by people who are able to create worlds that other folks would find all the things impossible, unsavory, difficult. I love that Nellie was just a really powerful response to the conditions that she was living in. She created her own response to those conditions, and that felt exciting to honor and to name. So that's why I'm here. It feels critical to say her name out loud. It feels critical to honor. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Blair.
Thank you, Hiro. Hi, how's it going? My name is Blair Franklin. Pronouns are they, them, and she, her. And I'm just so grateful and honored to be part of this beautiful reading of this work that you've created, Saida, that you've uplifted. I think what calls me and makes me feel really excited about it is, just the complexity and nuance in Nellie's life. And actually speaking the words out loud does something to my body in ways that reading the words didn't do, and I'm kind of feeling her in a different sort of way. And just that transition and how she was able to hold so much with the life that she led. Experienced so much joy and so much pain simultaneously. So I'm just really honored to feel those emotions in my body in this moment and bring that to life with the reading. And I will pass it to Malik.
Hey everybody, Malik Coleman, he, him, they, them. Thank you, Saida, for the invitation to be a part of this reading. I think a lot of times in history, all we get are facts. Like we get like a born date, a death date, and then whatever history decides is important to report on. And what I loved about STUNT is we got like everything, because we're like more than our facts. And this piece is like so powerful because it's like, I want to know how people's like heartbeat feels. I want to know like how their fear feels, or their joy feels like. And that's what STUNT is. Like, I felt like I got into her life. It felt like she was speaking. It reminds me of ancestor work when when ancestors are speaking through you and want you to know the full truth. And when I read STUNT and when I hear STUNT being read, that's what it feels like. It feels like an ancestor is like screaming, tell my story, tell my story. And as a storyteller, I'm just fascinated with that process in every medium. So I'm excited to be here. And I'm going to pass it to Theo.
Hey everybody, I'm Theo. My pronouns are he, him. So excited to be here, so grateful to be here. And again, thank you to Saida for the invitation. Similar to what others have shared, so I'm a cultural worker in my day job. I'm also a historian, and I love discovering about Black counterculture. Growing up, I never saw anybody who looked like me, who shared my story in history, which was my favorite class. So as I've grown up and gone along, I'm always drawn to stories of folks who shared some kind of similar background with me and just did exciting things to liberate our folks. I loved learning about Nellie's story through Saida's eyes, and then also just speaking the words aloud and bringing the story to life have been truly amazing. And I've never done a live poetry reading before, so this has been great. And I am going to pass it to Jabari.
Hey everybody, my name is Jabari. My pronouns are he and they. And gosh, what is not to love about this? I love when art makes me feel and it makes me think. And Saida, your art always does that. It makes me feel and think so deeply. I was connected to the themes of power, the themes of pleasure and sex, and transferring any power from white men is always a story that I'm open to hearing about. But Nellie was a conqueror. She was a sorcerer. She was a healer. She was a source of community health and wellness. And so I just love particularly what Malik said about this was a way that we got to almost hear directly from Nellie in some way, and stories that, should be told that aren't. So I've read this alone, but hearing it from everyone's voices today was something just really special. And so I just really appreciate being included in this. And I'm so proud of you, Saida. Yeah, this was really powerful. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Kalima.
All right. Hello, I'm Kalima Young. My pronouns are she and her. And yes, like everyone else, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak Nellie's words aloud from Saida's interpretation. I really appreciate a lot about this. Well, one, I appreciate seeing all the y'all faces. Hi, friends. That's always nice. But I really appreciate one, sort of invisible histories that are told. And the fact that STUNT is really an opportunity to learn about a history that no one necessarily knows about unless they're looking for Black womanist or feminist histories and resistance. I also love the fact that Nellie operated in those spaces of sort of race and gender-based trauma, where you can see in the way that the story is written, there's these moments of like joy, there's these moments of heartache, there's these moments of tragedy. And I feel like that is just all the African experience, the African diaspora experience is always in a space of both and STUNT feels like both and. And as a filmmaker, I just love the visual quality of the poetry. Like I literally see it, I smell it, I see it. You know what blue magic feels like when it's in your hair. It's very evocative. And I really appreciate being allowed to be a part of the process of bringing it to life in this space. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much. And, for any of those who are out there in social media land or Facebook land, or I don't know all the channels that this is being shared on, so for context, all of us are in community with each other. And it was really important for me to do a very, very queer version of STUNT, because I'm very homosexual. And I think, as we talk about this, like, I think we're in a moment with the repeal of Roe v. Wade and everything that's happening in our country, where we're seeing so many of like these rights that I think we always knew were precarious. That precarity is being affirmed to us, right? And so for me, I'm in this moment of being like, well, hell yeah, this respectability politics that I think honestly has pushed folks like Nellie Jackson into the shadows is not working, right? And so I'm curious for y'all, as you think about kind of Nellie Jackson or other folks, like who are the folk heroes that y'all are turning to right now in this moment to like stay sane or stay hopeful or stay rooted? And I will name for me that one of them is Miss Piggy, but that's a longer story that we're not going to talk about right now. But Miss Piggy is a G.
My mind just went down a whole pigeonhole about how Miss Piggy is a feminist icon and we need to be talking about Miss Piggy. But I think that for me, being connected to a large community of sex workers here in Baltimore, I feel like I know a lot of Nellies. And I think that I am carrying them with me in this story. So yeah, that's what it is for me.
When I think about folk heroes, I always go to my family first. And I think about my grandfather. He was like this, like, speaking of interiors, like I find out more about him now that he's passed than before. Like, because everyone used to talk about the way he talked, right? Like you can't understand him. And then I found out he's like Geechee, like he's half Geechee. That's why half the words you can understand and half the words he's like speaking in a whole nother language. And I remember sitting at his feet, and he talked a lot about, from a very young age, having to kind of do whatever it takes. Like, for instance, he had his job as as a butcher's assistant, but he wasn't getting paid enough to feed his family. And so he would do his job and then also steal a lot of things from this butcher to make sure his family could be fed. And he always had that. He always had like his legal job and then whatever else he had to do to make sure his family was well. And when I think about that as a child, I wasn't privy to that knowledge. And as an adult, I can very much understand and respect that willingness as growing up as a Black person growing up in the 50s and 60s and 70s and never being legally able to obtain enough, but always having to do whatever it takes. So that's that energy I carry with me to this day. Not that I'm out here stealing y'all, but I will do whatever it takes.
I will add is like, as other folks are like thinking, like this was honestly a big part of like why I wrote Stunt was I really became fascinated with Nellie Jackson after I read about her love of fur coats. One to think, I know people have very different feelings about fur, not trying to like instigate a war. And right, like when you think about, this Black woman in the 1930s, like really in so many ways confronting death every day, who was like, I'm going to wear visible statements of my wealth and my ability to kind of, control this entire economic wheel that is Natchez. It was literally a stunt, right? Which is why she feels like such a folk hero to me. Because she was like, I'm not even going to do this covertly. I'm going to put it in your face and sell a gift and have a gift shop where I sell things about how much and how obvious, how obviously I'm stunting on y'all, which I love so dearly. And I think Kalima, you had something you wanted to share.
Oh yeah, no, I'm still thinking about like just throwing things in people's face and being like, no, I'm stunting on y'all. What? Like calling it. What? You might as well just be as bold as possible. But when I'm thinking about folk heroes and I'm thinking about Nellie and I'm thinking about stunt in general and about how we have to create our own mythologies. Like as Black folk, we have to create our own mythologies. We have to create our own mythic stories and mythic heroes, and how Nellie just is one of those that I'm happy is being reinscribed in our sort of wall of folk heroes. That's all.
Yeah, there's all these ideas that get recycled and reused when we create media like film and things like that. And then you have this like beautiful original story that I'm like, I want to see in every possible medium. Like this is the story we need, right? Like right exactly now. And so I just want to just agree with like we have to create our own mythologies, and this is one that I think would just serve us well right now.
And I think too, one thing I want to know is we want to put out an invitation to the audience who we know are listening to us on like various streams to feel free to share any questions or anything you would like to ask, like in the chat. And while we're waiting for audience questions, the other thing that I wanted to kind of just put out there is we did get one question. Are there other works that you think are in conversation with Stunt that you'd recommend to viewers, either in the form of celebrating Black folk heroes or other mythical interpretations, ways of summoning more than just facts? Ooh, that's a very fancy question.
My first sort of thought and answer to that question is I don't actually have specifics, but I think one thing that can be fun as you're trying to find folk heroes is to choose an era, right? What was being produced? I think one of the things that's becoming a bit of a muse for me is What was going on in the 1960s with Black women and housing projects in New York? It's a very specific space. You know that somewhere in there, there's some folk heroes that have been created in a specific space. Go down the rabbit hole and see what art was being made. Go down the rabbit hole and see what fashion was coming out. Go down the rabbit hole and see what films were being made and start searching for the folks that were contributing to those areas, those cultural spaces. And I'm pretty sure you'll come up with a few new folk heroes. So I think sometimes that's one of the best and sort of the funnest ways to sort of do that archival work and look for the stories that you haven't heard yet. Is to pick an era and just roll up in it, looking at all the cultural production that was happening at that particular moment and seeing what comes out.
I have scenes from Paris is Burning flashing in my head right now. You know, Saida, when you were talking about Nellie stunting with her fur coat, I'm reminded of a quote from Paris is Burning that's, "We are stunt in and of ourselves." And how stunting has been so important to our joy and our survival and our identity. And so this idea of what does it mean to stunt, I think shows up in a lot of important works. And so I'm just there are scenes flashing from, you know, opulence, you own everything, for me right now.
Yeah, in response to, I guess maybe your most recent, the Q&A, but then also the question you asked before, I am thinking about folk heroes, and the thing that comes up for me is just anyone that is actually reconnecting deeply to land and to nature around us, especially in this moment where we're in drastic climate change and things are changing so quickly, and we're just seeing so much impact every single day from society in a world that is just elevating the change that we're seeing, right, in our environments around us. And so there's something to me about both the Black folks, Black and trans people that I see that I've been able to be in community with that are like tending to land, that are restoring land, that are bringing people to land, that are in the quiet of the woods, who are listening and remembering who they are, who are healing through that connection, and then dreaming up new worlds in relationship to each other and then into lands that are possible. And so then I lean into like Afrofuturism a bit. And then I think a lot about the N.K. Jemison's works and the Fifth Season series, which I'm obsessed with, and just, yeah, Black folks, their connection to a world that is rapidly changing and what kind of magic and power folks can access and possess during that time. And so there's much more to it, but I'm thinking both about land and Black and queer and trans people in our past, but also in our future.
So can I just say, and I've been trying to figure out how to fit this in so I didn't sound completely random, but you know, here you go. So I don't know how many of you have seen in the interwebs have seen Midsommar, but one of the central poems in Stunt where I talk about Nellie is talking about like skinning white people and wearing their pelts was inspired by Midsommar, right? Because there's a whole scene where they cut open a whole bear, y'all. And they put a man inside the bear, and then they burn him because apparently that's what you do in Midsommar. But you know, I say that to say, like, it was really fascinating to me to kind of think about, like, how do we think about mythology in the context of like managing American-grown misogynoir, and how do we use like kind of these like European horror tropes and kind of even turn them on their head. So then it actually becomes a way of fighting for liberation, right? And reparations. I'm not advocating that reparations is sewing people in bears. I'll be very clear about that. But it was a lot of fun, I think, to play with that in terms of Stunt and think about what this could look like, right? And the other thing that I would want to add, just like in terms of the folklore piece is, or like who's like another hero that I'd love to look into is Luther Vandross. I think, I mean, obviously Luther is deeply, deeply loved, I think, especially like in Black communities, but I often feel that the ways we talk about him are divorced from conversations around his sexuality, right? And so, I'm hoping to start working as soon as I finish working on my second manuscript, a collection of poems about Luther that explore that and like pair it with a podcast where I talk to people about why they love Luther so much.
Thank you, Saida. The way that you find a way to bring that movie and Luther Vandross to every conversation should be studied for your third manuscript. But I will say I do agree.
Please don't.
I think too late. But I do agree that a lot of times one of the reasons why I'm glad we're having this conversation is because we are like ourselves are studied and celebrated in sections of ourselves. Like you can study this like Black piece of me, but we're going to leave your queerness, your transness over here. And that happens historically, but that even happens now. I think like even people that are currently celebrated now, you only want to, even if you're celebrating the queerness, you don't want to celebrate the Blackness that informs that. And so I think that where I would like to see not only when we were appreciating folks in history, but like even appreciating now, it's like, what is it when we kind of sing the whole song and tell the whole story? So I think that's definitely something that I'm excited to read and to listen to.
So unless we have some more questions come in, what I'd love to invite us to do is for folks, maybe just to do one last go round and share if there's like a particular line or poem from Stunt that like stands out to you, and just share a little bit about like why that calls to you in particular. And because I'm asking this, I'm happy to go first. And so my favorite line in this chapbook, and actually I think my favorite line that I've ever written, it might be the top two, is there is no such thing as luck. The seasons that came, I made them. And the reason why I love that, and it feels weird to say this because I feel like I'm just like patting myself on the back a lot, but that's okay. But the reason why I love it is because it's such a fucking badass thing to say. And when you think about Nellie Jackson and the trajectory of her life, like she made the life that she had. She made it. It wasn't luck that she had, this brothel for 60 years and created this like powerful space and like was able to resource movement building in the South. She did that. Right. And when I think about kind of the power it takes to be able to do that as a Black woman who is, pro-sex worker and owning a brothel in the 1930s, that's the impact of that is like almost impossible to name or really honor.
I chose an image of downtown Natchez for my background to really ground me. But one line that really yanked me up by the neck was, there is no good white man. No man that can't be spoiled by power. And like, I'm just gonna let that yank me for a couple more hours. But that was it for me.
Mm-hmm. For me, every time I read the Cabal poem, that entire group, it's just so evocative. I think it's the visual person in me, but I see the women in that purple hour standing on the porch, tired, they just got the yucky white man sex smell off of themselves, right? And they're sitting there, right? Like this, like, oof, Lord. And then it ends with that I just feel like the celebration of Black femme womanhood in that particular poem just always strikes me as resistance and strikes me as just beauty and knowing and a little bit of trickster energy and a little bit of witchery, and all that particular poem sort of inspires every time that I read it. And then to end with that, the yeast of tamed flesh. And we know exactly what we're talking about. You know what you're smelling, you know what you're seeing, she's gonna call the barbecue on you, call you out at the barbecue. Like, you get this entire story that is happening in this one particular poem, part of the poem that I really appreciate a lot.
I was going to say the one that jumped out to me, how the first poem that I read opens, I tell you there's no word yet made in 1930 to speak what my eyes witness. We could say that today. I feel like there is literally, we have this beautiful work with words, and yet, there's limitations to what language and words can convey. And that just really still sticks with me.
I think the one that reaches out is the one that makes me the most uncomfortable, which is Nellie entertains a Klansman. Every time I read that, I have to read it really, really slow, because it's something about I don't know, it's just a juxtaposition of a Black woman entertaining a Klansman and like the words, but I love art that makes me uncomfortable. So I think that's the one that I love the most, because it's the one I've reread the most.
Yeah, so I grew up watching a lot of horror movies and stuff. Like, it was kind of like just a thing that my family loved to do. Like, just all the B-rated movies, etc. Just would always come together during the holidays and watch a horror movie together, get a little scared, talk about it. I'm the one that introduced Midsommar, I believe, to Saida. So just from context there also. But and for that reason, I actually, Nellie Buys a Fur Coat actually is one of my favorite poems, I think, in the series. And just the power of it. Just Nellie is a witch. She is a sorceress. She's just like able to move and manipulate and change and just make such power happen through her body, through the brothel and the tent, and just like, and that's just a really great, really visual description of just like what that power looks like in practice. And I think, just the lines around, all of the kind of gross, a little bit like, just the lines that are kind of like the bear thing that Saida was talking about. Those things are actually they're the ones that I'm kind of most into. So I like that poem most.
So beautiful. I think the line that is resonating with me now is that of Nellie tells her children a parable. And we all have to have a master. I just wanted to be my own. And I knew Jesus would not come no matter what my daddy said. And I feel like there's something very just powerful about people recognizing that they're world making, particularly Black women make new worlds for us to now sit in, exist in, be in. And so I feel like, there's a lot of power in claiming your own, claiming yourself as a god, claiming yourself as a deity, claiming yourself as someone who has the power to transform space, time. And I love that. I love the direct opposition to what was probably told to her and socialized into her, and all kinds of things. I appreciate people who are able to see the God in themselves. So, yeah.
Well, I want to thank all of y'all so much for helping me to build this altar to Nellie Jackson today. So much gratitude to OutWrite, to the interpreters, to everyone listening in. If you are interested in purchasing a copy of STUNT, it's available on Neon Hemlock Press. I think if you just Google Neon Hemlock Press, it'll come right up. And with that, thank y'all so much for taking part in STUNT.